All right, what's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. It's at Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. A link will be in the description box below, as usual. This video is entitled You Can't Bargain with God. More of a spiritual video than a religious video. But I'm using the heaven and hell analogy. In the book of Revelations, they talk about the book of life, right? Where every man and woman will be judged on their actions. You know, and people try to take it out of context and say, if you believe in Jesus and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you're going to heaven. That's not true. Even in that book, that's not what it says. You're judged on your actions. You know, if you look into spirituality of Egyptian spirituality with the Nubis, you know, your heart is weighed against a feather, which is in some way the weight of your actions versus your heart versus truth. Like if your heart weighs more than truth, you go into hell. You know what I mean? If your truth weighs more than your heart, you know, you did good on that scale, you know, because you live by truth. Truth is what guided your quote unquote carnal life or carnal flesh. You made that decision, and a lot of times people try to circumvent the idea that you can make choices to live one way in a negative way, but somehow make some type of bargain with God that's gonna make it all right, and it's not. That's not how it works. You see, in that book of life is your actions, not your family's actions, not your circumstances, but how you actually reacted and handled your life and circumstances. Nobody's gonna have a perfect life, and this is what I mean by that. You know, I could take this in this country's aspect. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do that. Today is Columbus Day. You got people upset that Columbus got a holiday because his history as a man was really, you know, hell worthy. So, you know, in actions and the things that he did in his life, he shouldn't be having a holiday for that. But then people get mad when people say this is, we're celebrating indigenous people. Forget that Columbus narrative. And then you try to look at quote unquote indigenous people for all the evils they did. And it's like, well, if you're going to say these people are, you know, sacrificing people on the altar, you have to also put Columbus's murders and sacrifices on that same altar too. He can't get a clean slate. You know, if you want to put them up by their worst traits, you got to put him up by his worst traits. But when it comes down to it, both cultures, with the negativity in their cultures, you can't bargain with God on that. Like, oh, I was just killing people. My bad. I murdered a few people here and there because it made me feel powerful and I felt great. And I thought, taking their life was just grand. But, my bad, God, I mean, their life, come on now, it's just me and you talking right here, right? You can't do that. So, same thing with, you can take this country and its history, and this country will say we have traditional values, and which wind up being quote unquote Christian values, which is supposed to be religious values. But the bulk of this country's history and present day operations, the religion of America is capitalism, not Christianity. Say what you want, but people respect people's bank account more than they do their humanity. And to a degree, if the wrong person has a big bank account, you're going to disrespect them because how dare they have more money than you in this society when you feel like you're socially on you socially have an advantage because of whatever, because of your race, your religion, your gender, your social status, or your family's social status that you were born into, that type of stuff. But when it comes to your actions in life, you see, if you consider yourself a spiritual person, what did you do with that life? You see, because a lot of people are Christians in this nation and they read the Bible and they praise Jesus. And for all the rich people who were in the Bible, and I don't know why people ever overlook this, for all the rich people, for all the kings, for all the queens, for all the people's champions, the most important figure that we consider in America is Jesus, a guy born into poverty, who never was rich, but what he did was he went around giving everything he could and helping all the people he could in whatever ways he could. And he had his moments where he didn't want to help people no more. You feel me? Because he had given all of himself. He sacrificed his whole self, literally and figuratively, right? And then and he winds up being the King of Kings, right? But the kings in that time didn't acknowledge him as a king. You know? So the important people of that time didn't acknowledge him as important. You know? But what winds up happening in situations like that, when we're dealing out in the world, we seem to forget, quote unquote, by that lesson that you don't have to have it all to be good to another human being, to give another human being what they may need that you have an abundance of. You know, when people say, you know, show me some love. If you don't have the time to show them love, because your time is spent making money, that's how you show them love, by giving them the profits, some of the money that you made from what you spend your time on. That's when money came into play. But if somebody is sad, you sitting there and cheering them up is showing them love. If somebody is hungry and you drop them off something to eat, that's showing them love. You don't even have to talk to them or know them, right? If somebody is thirsty on a hot day and you know that because we all live and experience the human condition, and you say, look, man, it ain't much, you know, this bottle of water is cold, you know, it cost me $1. It ain't much, but I know, you know, you might need this. People appreciate things like that. You know, maybe you can't make the blind see, but you can feed the hungry. You can clothe the people without clothes. You can, you know, quench the thirst of thirsty people. Little things at a time. Maybe you can't feed 1,000 people with, you know, a couple of loaves of bread and a few fish in a couple of hours span. But maybe you can feed 1,000 people in a lifetime, just here and there. And, you know, but if you're one of those people who are selfish and self-centered and, you know, believe Darwinism is the way to go, then don't try to bargain with God when it's all over. And the reason I say that is because, you know, if you live long enough, you get to watch people die. And I've never saw a person who's given their all in a positive way in life be scared of death. I've never seen them be fearful that it's all over. I've never seen them regret what they couldn't do. The most maybe the people I know who shed tears, it wasn't for themselves, because they felt they had got acknowledgement from, you know, ancestors. I'll say it like that, because most old people I know who've passed on have had conversations with their elders before they died. You know, but the people who didn't, who were nervous and scared of death, are normally people who want a second chance because they made all the wrong choices and they knew they made all the wrong choices, but the dysfunction turned them on to the point where when their day came, they had anxiety and sorrow because they knew hell awaited, or the abyss or whatever, They knew they didn't do what they came here to do because they were too busy indulging in hedonism. So to me, even with that book of life going back, you're not judged. See, God is not judging you. You're judging you. That's why you can't bargain with God. That's why it was like at the gate, St. Peter's there with the book of life, and you're judged on you. You can't just say, "Where God is? Let me holler at him for a minute." Don't work like that. You can't say, "God, it's God, it's your fault." No, because we all have had, moments that are crossroads. We all have decisions that we might make that may fortunately or unfortunately be a defining moment in our position to go to heaven or hell. So for me, it's a no-brainer that you're not going to be able to bargain with God when it's over. You can't just live your life for yourself and not be an instrument to help the planet, and you sitting out here taking and taking and taking and using and manipulating. And this is part of the reason why the Bible talks about wealthy men not getting into heaven. But it seems like a contradiction when they have wealthy men in the family that pass down inheritance. It's not that you're wealthy that's the problem. It's how you got wealthy. If you got wealthy doing things in a right manner, in a positive manner, you did the right thing. And you leaving an inheritance to your offspring is more of a good look on you too. But if you get wealthy by negativity, your reward for the negativity you spread is in hell. And just because, and unfortunately, your legacy and the generations that come after you may have inherited wealth, but they will inherit the curse of that wealth also, So, and there's no bargaining with that, and you see that sometimes with families whose families die out, or it seems like they can't just something just doesn't go right. They just always hit with adversity and calamity. And it's not because of them. It's that they're paying for the sins of the father, the sins of the mother, who built the foundation on negativity. So there ain't no bargaining with that. You can't. Even when you inherit it, whatever you do with it, that is your business at that particular point. But when it comes to decisions you make as a human being, you're gonna live and die with your own decisions and choices, and you're gonna have to bear the consequences, whether they be positive or negative, when that comes to pass. So this is why I say there's no bargaining with God, because they say God is in you and God is in all of us. We all have a little bit of God in us. So don't ask for forgiveness when you for your negative qualities if you never did anything to atone them. That's not God's problem. That's yours. We out.